Chopped beef with potatoes, carrots, and onions, an easy version of a traditional pot roast, is a warm, hearty meal that the whole family will enjoy. Today, I'm showing you how to make this very simple recipe in just minutes. I'm also going to reveal my outstanding secret ingredient, that everyone has in their fridge at home. It's gonna take your roast from good to great. So we all, myself included, need a few go-to recipes that are simple and can be put in the crock pot easily in the morning, and no muss, no fuss, are succulent and delicious when we come home at night. I see this recipe as just that, and guess what? It tastes like you slaved all day and you so did not. That is in large part due to my secret ingredient, so stay tuned for that. Also, I want to show you at the end of the video how to make a really easy gravy out of your crock pot drippings, so make sure you listen to the very end because it really will make your meal even more delicious. And as you're watching, if the recipe looks good to you, please don't hesitate to click that like button below and share this video around with others you think might enjoy it. Alrighty, let's do this. First, your roast. You can use any cut of beef roast for this recipe, rump, steak, sirloin tip, whatever. It doesn't matter. As for size, I have a large family, so I'm using a large crock pot that I think it's an 8-quart crock pot. If you have one this big, you can easily use a 5-pound roast like I'm using. But if you have a smaller crock pot, maybe a 4 or 5-quart crock pot, then I would recommend using a 3-pound roast. And guess what? For this recipe, you can totally use a frozen roast that you do not need to thaw in advance. That is what I am doing today. It saves time, no need to thaw in the fridge, and you all know I'm about simplifying my life, but it also saves money. Fresh, never frozen roasts from the grocery store are so much more expensive than if you bought meat in bulk from a local farmer or a butcher or something like that, that you then put in the freezer for the winter. I'm talking $4 a pound instead of $12 a pound, people. It really does save you a lot. When you are putting the roast in your crock pot, please put it with the fatty side on the top. So you'll notice most roasts, if you take a look at them, even when they're frozen, you can tell which side kind of has that layer of fat. Don't put that at the bottom, put that at the top so that the juices from the fat as it's cooking go all over your roast and make it more tender and delicious. Next, my secret ingredient. Are you ready for it? It's pickle juice. Yes, that's right, pickle juice. No need for extra herbs and spices for this recipe. All you need is to get out a jar of either dill or sweet pickles from your refrigerator. You can use half a cup or 1 cup depending on, again, your size of roast. I'm using a full 1 cup of pickle juice here. So I simply take my homemade dill pickles and strain the juice out. You can totally use store-bought pickle juice for this as well though. My mom gave me this tip years ago, and I am telling you, it has made all the difference in my beef roasts. Something about the salt and the vinegar in that pickle juice just gives it so much flavor. It makes your roast more tender. You can do this whether you're using a frozen beef roast or if you're using one that is fresh, not frozen. I should have said that before. You can definitely do this recipe if it's a fresh roast too. The roast is not going to taste like pickles in the end. I'm using dill pickle juice here, and I don't even like dill pickles, but I love this roast. So don't worry, your roast isn't going to taste pickly. It's just going to taste more rich and flavorful. Next, get out some potatoes, carrots, and onions. It doesn't matter whether your potatoes are white, red, or Yukon Gold. It doesn't matter if you're using orange or yellow carrots. Same with your onions, yellow, red, or white, doesn't matter. The idea behind this recipe is that it is simple and it is adaptable to whatever you have on hand. So don't sweat it. You don't have to do it exactly the same as I am. Choose an amount that is based on your family size and what will fit in your crock pot. So today I'm using 8 to 10 potatoes, 8 to 10 carrots, and 3 onions. Next, get out your vegetable peeler and peel those washed veggies up. After I've peeled my veggies, I'm simply going to take a paring knife and chop them into very large chunks. So for my potatoes, that means I'm likely chopping them into quarters. And for my carrots, you can see here, I'm chopping them into about thirds. So there's no need to slice and dice very small pieces. You actually don't want that for this recipe. You want the large chunks. And I am most comfortable actually using a paring knife instead of a cutting board and a chef's knife, but you do you guys. I just find this quicker and easier for cleanup because I don't need to use a cutting board. Your onions, you're also going to chop into very large chunks. They are in this recipe to add flavor as it's cooking, so if you chop them too small, they're not going to be able to do the same job. Next, layer them around the roast. So I put half of each veggie layered in first, and then I layer again. This means that everything's kind of evenly distributed, and I'm starting with potatoes, then carrots, then onions, then potatoes, carrots, and onions. All right, wasn't that easy? Now it's time to simply set and forget. Plug in your crock pot and set your temperature and your timer. This is all going to depend on how long you actually have to cook it. If you're leaving for work at 7 a.m. and you're not going to be back till 5, set the crock pot for low and it will cook all day long for 8 to 10 hours. If, however, you only have a shorter period of time, let's say 6 hours, you're going to want to cook this on high the entire time. I actually choose to do a hybrid of this. I tend to cook mine on high for a couple hours and then I turn it down to low for a couple hours. I find this just to be kind of a perfect mix. So I am home during the day that I can turn it down. But if you're not going to be home during the day, don't sweat it. Cook it on low 8 to 10 hours or high for 6 hours. The moral of the story here is you do need at least 6 hours for this recipe. Before serving, remove your roast and let it sit on a cutting board for 5 minutes or so to cool before slicing. Using a slotted spoon, put the veggies in a bowl and set them aside to cool as well. All right, I promised I was going to show you guys how to make a gravy out of our crock pot juices because it really does make this meal fabulous. So here's how you do it. With the remaining juices in your crock pot, run about 1 or 2 cups of the juice through a strainer into a small pot. Next, take a few tablespoons of these juices and create a slurry with them and cornstarch. I use about 1 or 2 tablespoons of cornstarch per 1 cup of liquid. So if you're using 2 cups of liquid, you're going to want at least 2 to 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, depending on how thick you like your gravy. Bring the liquid to a boil over the stove, then slowly whisk in your cornstarch slurry. Continue to boil until thickened. If it's not thick enough, create more cornstarch slurry and continue to add it in. Now all that's left is to slice that beef and serve it with your veggies and gravy. Delicious. I like to serve this meal with a side of my homemade coleslaw with homemade coleslaw dressing. If you would like the recipe for that dressing, I will link it for you because it really does go fabulously with this meal. It's simply chopped cabbage in my homemade dressing. Totally doable and easy for you. For more yummy recipes and advice for living on less, check out these videos beside me. It's been great to cook with you all today, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. For The Least, this is Jen.